on Facebook Live. Hello, everyone. So I thought we'd talk today about surrender. Surrender being the spiritual surrender that we must face, and all the little surrenders that life presents to us that we must lead up to. I have a lot of things to talk with you all about today, but not the least of which is I'd like to draw this back to your specific life. So our call-in number is 347-850-1647. I hope you will call us and talk to us about what's going on in your life and in your heart, so that we can take these lessons and apply them specifically to you. I don't think that, I think theology sometimes misses the boat because we speak in abstracts, and spirituality is not supposed to be an abstract. It's supposed to be something that we use and that is active and alive in our lives. So that's the purpose, honestly, of this show. Well, hello, darling. Hello, Lisa. Lisa just wrote me. I'm always so thrilled to hear from my friends and the people that are listening to the show. So thank you. All right, let's do a prayer. Get me on the page with you. And then we are going to launch off into some information, and hopefully you will be able to use this. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, and all everything in this world is. We thank you so much as we sit here, opening to a deeper level of us as you. We ask now that we see, hear, sense, and know what you would have us do as we open to the truth that lies in your enlightenment in us. We know these things are there, or we would have no interest in a show like this. But we don't know where we are, and we're frustrated. Dear God, give us the next level and the next and the next as we journey to who we really are as our potential, as love, as the aspect of us that we are as you. These things are so untrue. In your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening to the show today. And so it is. Amen. Well, I just saw my hair is sticking up. As I said, I sometimes look like alfalfa doing this show. I've never been one to be able to tame my hair. I want to start out telling you about a friend of mine. I referred to her last week on the show, and it's a great lead in to today. So to catch you up, my darling friend, client, had a very difficult neighbor. The difficult neighbor had a very large dog. My friend has a very small dog. This neighbor has a dog that she has a very hard time controlling. And so I think she yells at my client because she is frightened, and she doesn't know how, she doesn't have any social graces, and she doesn't know how to handle this whole situation. And through the years, it has been a very contentious relationship. My client has brought that up to me for various reasons, and we reached a marvelous place in her spiritual journey where she has the opportunity to make that right and be the loving human being that she is. So, I suggested to her that she get herself in a right heart and let go of blame and shame and anger, and that she make it right with this woman, and that she take her plant, and that she says something to the effect from her own heart that she is very sorry that things have been so contentious, and she doesn't want that anymore. She really wants to know her and care about her, and that she will be sure to pick up her little dog every time she's walking by, so the woman doesn't have to worry about her dog being in any way out of control and hurting another. And, well, thank you so much, Jim. Thank you all very, very much for pinning me and for sending these shows out. That means the world. Thank you. So, she did that this week, and she wanted to tell me what happened. So, she took her dog, and she left it at home, and she took a plant, and she went down and knocked on this woman's door. And she said, in essence, I'm so sorry for all this time. It is this long overdue. But I wanted to bring you something and say I'm so sorry for any kind of contentious relationship. I will always pick up my dog. I don't want you frightened. And I want to be friends and appreciate each other. Now, it's very interesting, this, because aren't you all sweet? Thank you so much for your lovely messages to me on Facebook Live. I appreciate it. So she made this overture. Now I want to tell you about this neighbor. This neighbor is not liked by anybody in the apartment. They all find her enormously difficult. They've all had very big fights with her. And so my client, my friend, is standing out there, outside, giving her a plant, and this neighbor was so grateful. She threw her arms around my client and hugged her and told her that indeed it was long overdue and that she so appreciated all this and that she wanted to be friends too. Wow. Isn't that amazing? And my friend, it was so cute, my client said, I could only think if all the neighbors are watching, they must have thought we both had lost our minds because nobody gets along with this woman, and here she is hugging the life out of me. I thought it was darling. And I want you to know that this was a big surrender. Not the biggest, but a very big one for my client. You see, this neighbor reminded her of her mother and her sister, whom she has never gotten along with. These people, the mother is long since passed. And until recently, she was still very, very angry at this woman and angry at the sister for being the mother's favorite, getting more than she did. She had to really genuinely get over that in order to walk down to this woman, to see her clearly as who she was, not with an overlay of mother and sister, right? And to give her this plant and to, in all sincerity, say, I am so sorry for my part in this, and I want to be friends. She surrendered her rage at her mother, rage at her sister. She surrendered this part of her story where she has to be angry, where she has to overlay these people on an innocent stranger. She really succeeded. Now, there's a reason I'm telling you this, relative to what I said might be a good thing for us to talk about today. And that is, she surrendered. And in that surrender, she said to me, I said, what did you feel? What did you feel? And she got very emotional and she said, relief. Relief. It felt so good. And I basked in it all day long. Isn't that nice? She felt relief. Because she gave up part of her story. That's what I want to say to you. My nose is running a little bit. I'm so sorry. One cannot disguise bodily functions when you're on the air. I've laughed about that for years because I do a lot of public speaking, and when your nose is running, it's just running. Okay. Apologies. We go through life dragging our past into our present. How do we do that? Well, anybody that reminds us of our mean sister or our critical mother or our violent father, anybody that reminds us of that in their characteristics that we see in life, we tend to overlay with these people who have harmed us, who have been in our past, and we don't like them and we don't get along with them, and we create contentious relationships. And look, every one of you is love, but every one of you, and I put myself in the same category, is love that is trying to be itself. You see, when we are young and things happen to us, the love, the undeveloped love that we are, and it is undeveloped because it is young, it is youthful. We don't understand it. We're just there to love, right? It's a bit naive. Well, that's the way we're supposed to be. It gets distorted because we don't understand life yet. As a matter of fact,
90 seconds.
90 seconds. Well, I think, ladies and gentlemen, we have done something with our show. And unfortunately, we are about to go off the air. I am so sorry about this. I will try to get back on. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give the rest of the show on Facebook Live. And I suggest to all of you that those of you that are listening to this show on Blog
60
Talk,
seconds.
if you're listening to the show on Blog Talk Radio, please switch over to Facebook Live, Martha Burgess Novak, and you will catch our show, because this is not going to work today. I'm going to go on and sign off now before we are signed off, okay? Here we go. All right.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Yeah, that's a lovely little voice. All right. So going back to our dialogue, our brains don't develop in order to understand any of life until we are in our 20s. There is no way that we can understand life when we are young. We are naive. Our love is a very pure, undeveloped love. So we start having the emotional experiences that every child has, and sometimes more violent than normal, whatever normal is. And in that case, our love starts becoming distorted. It is important it's distorted, because we have to survive, you see. And a child that does not create its issues, i.e. the distortions of love, it is the exact same thing, doesn't survive, because a child has to make sense of their world. The whole ego is formed at 18 months old in the ego child's mind, along with it, to understand your world, to make sense of what's going on so you can survive. Because if it doesn't make sense, if this world is indeed chaos to the child, you can't survive. So back then, your job as a child is to survive as the infant in utero, as the infant and as the toddler. Until you're about 8 years old, your job is to survive, to make sense of your world. So love gets distorted. Love becomes fear. Love becomes hate. Love becomes terror. Love becomes violence. Love becomes manipulation. Love becomes people-pleasing. Love becomes avoidance. Love becomes a variety of things. That in our adult mind, we recognize, thank you. In our adult mind, we recognize that we are now limited by this. I know in my own journey, I was an actor when I was young, right? And I knew that I had to do something. I got into therapies and things like that because I recognized my acting was tight. That was the word I used. What I didn't say to myself, but soon found out, was that I was afraid to really show myself. That's why it was much easier to do a character than be me, like I'm talking to you right now. At one point in my life, I couldn't do that, right? I wanted somebody else's words, another character. I hid behind those things. So I was very fearful. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the poster child for this work. I know it works because I see a lot of people healed by it, and I myself was. Yes. Thank you, sweetheart, for saying that. I'm getting the most lovely messages, so thank you very much for sharing that message. I think that you all can see these messages too on your machine, and if you can, we just got a very lovely one. One of our dear friends just said, I just wanted them to love me. Yes, we do. That's the child. We want them to love us, and one of the reasons we want them to love us is because that's how we survive. You see, so your survival is threatened when you perceive that they don't love you. And they may not have. And then again, they may have with some sort of distorted love themselves. I had one man tell me that he was very fearful, and he thought that was very God-centered because he had learned in his household to fear God. He was a good child if they had reared a God-fearing child. That's a problem. Because if God is love, if you are love, and that is all one is without distortions. Love and all the things that love envelops, creativity, joy, happiness, intimacy, and all those other fine things that are part of that kind of spiritual love. We are denied it when we are God-fearing, you see? We must get closer to God. God is not going to see.
Disarmed.
Hello. God is not going. Well, you are hearing a lot of all sorts of things today, aren't you, on the show? Okay, let's stick with our. I laugh sometimes, and I think we have to train our minds to stick to the point. And I put myself right there with you, because with the alarm going off and with the Blog Talk Radio talking to me and everything, sometimes it's a little hard going back to my point. I was very fearful. My work showed that I was not sure of myself. I was sitting out there with whoever was critiquing me, judging me, seeing if I was right for the part, right? I was sitting out there with him instead of being fully in myself and doing the best job I could, being real. That's why I got into this work. Now you can say, well, you got into this work for the wrong reasons. And I say, well, it wasn't an ideal reason. But I'll also say that we all get into it for the wrong reasons, and then we stay in it for the right ones. And are they really the wrong reasons at all? Because they start us, right? They start us. You just need to start. You'll be fine if you just start. It becomes very, very important that we start, that we realize that we really are nothing but love, and that we have to get back to it. You hear me say from time to time that nothing can turn into itself that isn't first itself. And this is what I mean. You were undeveloped love, and it got distorted into all these other things. And in consciousness work, in your listening to the show, and your opening to deeper and deeper levels of your own truth in God, what happens is it turns into developed love. And the fear now drops away. Your rage that you're aware of having, love that couldn't be itself. See, it's like it's like water. Water is usually a very spiritual symbol, by the way, and not incorrectly. So you got water, and you freeze it, and it turns into ice. And you let it melt, and it turns into water again. Nothing can turn into itself without being at first itself. Water turns into water when the ice melts. Love turns into a developed love when the fear drops away. Now, how do you get the fear dropping away? Surrender. Now, my friend clearly surrendered. Now, she didn't surrender the whole egoic child's mind. Our lives are filled with all these wonderful surrenders, small surrenders, where we let go of this and that. And don't think for a minute, I don't know it's hard. I was on this journey, and I still am. But the interesting thing is, there is a big surrender waiting for you if you ever decide that this path is yours. Because a lot of people surrender, study consciousness, just want to feel better, and they stop at a place where they do. They stop. I don't want any more. That is not my path. If you're listening to the show, it may not be yours. We all want to feel better, and so you shall. However, one of the really big and wonderful things that happen to us in this world is that we have the opportunity to surrender everything, to just surrender our stories. And when we surrender our stories, the old stories from our past, who did what to whom, and I didn't get this and I didn't get this, when we turn ourselves into the love that we really are, the life transforms. Because everything you see in the world right now that bothers you out there is an aspect of you. What if you have such a solid sense of yourself, such a solid sense of the love that you have to give through your talents and gifts and abilities and kindness, that when you see it out there, you pray for those people involved, you pray for it all, but it is not you. And you help where you can, but you know your limits. You see, the story that I told you this morning, my girlfriend got over her story and loved that person. She wasn't trying to change that person. That person could be just who she was. She was changing her in response to that person. That's the key, ladies and gentlemen. All these things that bother you are there to show you what bothers you and what aspects of these things in you you must heal. The side reflects the inner. Isn't that nice? And I say it's nice because you may not like what you're seeing, but that gives you all the power to change it when you change the inner. When you put the story down. You see, that story is there to show you who you are. In ego, and as you drop the egoic child's mind, in the power of God that you are. And your life really transforms. Now, it does take years and years and years and years to get to the place where you put it all down. It is like an atom bomb going off in you. It was for me. And it was just an ordinary day, and there were people around me. They never knew what was going on with me, except I couldn't stop crying with relief. I couldn't stop crying. I was so glad. I knew that if I died right there, it was all perfect. It was perfect. Every moment was perfect in my life. It had hurt, but it was perfect. And of course, I didn't die. Here I am with you. It was only the ego child's mind that died, that part of me that looked at life as a child. My ego did not die, nor will yours. The ego is there to make sense of our world, but making sense of our world as the ego child's mind perceived it, as the child perceived it, has to go so you can see the bigger picture in consciousness. We make this very hard for ourselves sometimes. Really, we do. And we get on the other side and we go, what in the world did I make this hard for myself? And yet every human being does, because the only thing we know of life is what we've lived. And we have to take a chance on there being more. And that is the death of the egoic child's mind, where we finally see more. Now, you can let it go in part, or you can let it go fully. You will not let it go fully all at one time. Man, that would blow the system out. That's not going to happen to you. We are blessed in consciousness work by letting a little go every day, every week, every month, every year. If we are doing this right, that will be the case. And when I say doing it right, I don't mean that there is a wrong way to do it. No, that's not what I am implying. I'm saying that we do it right when we keep growing, when we don't stop, when we are always open to more, to our next lesson, when we are taking the responsibility for ourselves. And that is the hardest part. When I say your world reflects who you are on the inside, chaos or violence or anything else, that is true. That's the hard thing to accept, isn't it? We don't want to accept that. But if you don't accept that, you also are not accepting the fact that you can change it by changing how you feel about things and your perceptions of things, and allowing God in to you, through you, coming up through you as a living God, so that you can finally see the way things are. And you'll hear me say this a lot: things are not what they seem. You see, it seemed in my friend's story that she had a mean old neighbor. And this mean old neighbor was not capable of love. That's what her ego child's mind said to her. Let me tell you, everybody is capable of love, with rare exception. And when I say with rare exception, some people have been wired and damaged in such a way that they're going to have a harder time. That is not you that I'm talking about. Nobody that I'm talking to right now will have that problem. So put your mind at rest. The whole reason you're listening to this is trying to connect the wires for yourself. Trying to say, I gotta find the way. One of the ways that we prevent spirit from coming in is by not accepting what is. You know, I found it fascinating that a number of years ago, well, I think it was last year, as a matter of fact, or a year before, I don't know who they is, by the way, but they found out that one of the most hated phrases was, it is what it is. I was shocked at that. Because it is what it is one of the most spiritual phrases there is. We have to accept what is, because it's the starting point of everything. If you think it is the end, well, there's an issue there that we've got to find, because this is a great example of my saying that there's a duality here in all of our lives. There's a duality. We can say, it is what it is, and that's the end, and there's no more, and I'm not going to get any more, and life is fatalistic and horrible. I am the victim of my fate. Or we can say, it is what it is because I accept what is, and it is the starting place for me for more. Oh, do believe that one. Please. Let's face whatever is limiting us, right? Accepting what is the starting place for everything. Accepting who you are and what you have created right now, good, bad, or indifferent, is a really important starting place for you, because you can change it if you accept it. Now, I have another story for you today. One of my dear friends, he's a very special person to me, is in the hospital. He had a heart valve surgery. And this was an open heart procedure for him. And he, getting ready for this, would sit in front of me and tell me that everything was just fine. When I saw fear, man, I took that away. But I saw him saying, I'm just going to get up. And he stopped saying this, by the way, to me. That he was just going to get up and he would be fine in 2 weeks and he was just going to get out there. Well, he's in his 70s, right? That ain't going to happen. When he was telling me that, I challenged him on that. I said, that doesn't, that's a fantasy. Thinking positively is good, but marrying a fantasy that you're going to be up in 2 weeks is not going to be what happens to you. What he ended up doing was hiding that from me, so I couldn't get any more of it because he knew I was going to go for it, right? And it made him feel better in the beginning about going into the surgery. If he knew he was going to, by God, he was going to get up in 2 weeks, he's going to be fine. Fine. Well, he is going to be fine, but he ain't going to be up in 2 weeks. So what happened is I talked to him recently, and his reality has come smashing up against his fantasy. There are a few things wrong that need to be taken care of. He is not out of the hospital in 2 days. He's going on 4 or 5, and he ain't out of the hospital. And he told me when we spoke, he said, I see I was in fantasy. I didn't want you taking it away from me either. I see I was in fantasy. And now I'm very depressed. And I'm very discouraged because I got to accept reality. And I said, well, that's the good thing. That's not the bad thing. So let's get the depression and let's get this. First of all, the depression is caused for two things, not the least of which is that the reality came smashing up against his fantasy. But you often have, when you are physically ill, there is often a depression that goes along with this when you are so seriously ill and you have been invaded as you have been when you've been operated on. There is a way that you have to start communicating with a very primitive part of your body, and that is the cellular body. Most of us do not know how to interpret cellular information and what the cells are doing. For example, one of the reasons that you always have a terrible day on the third day after surgery, and mark my words, you will, is because shock has worn off, and on the third day your cells get it that they have been invaded. Okay, they've been cut on. That's what I mean by invaded. I want you to realize that if that happened back in the 2nd century BC, you'd be dead when that spear went through you. But in this, and so the cells freak out, right? You're not dying. He's not dying, thank God. He's going to be all right. But what is happening is his cells are absolutely freaking out. So the nurse comes in to put the cuff on him and take his blood pressure. That the cells interpret as the beginning of another invasion. They put a thermometer in your mouth, the beginning of another invasion. Somebody just walking in and out to see how he is, the beginning of another invasion. Here's some more pills, the beginning of another invasion. The cells are primitive. They have their own experience. So he can say, all this is good, I'm still in the hospital, we're getting control of my platelets, we're getting control of this. The cells freaking out. So what do you do about this? Well, one of the things you can do is meditate. So we've got a meditation thing going on with him all the time, that he can talk to his cells. Look, I am in charge, because what happened when they put him under for the surgery? Nobody was in charge. He wasn't in charge anymore. That's what happens when you die. Don't you understand? Something else is taking over. So the cells of the body charged with keeping you alive are freaking out. You're dead. You're dying. So now you've got to get back and start talking to them and communicating with this very primitive part of you, saying, really, you're all right. I'm in charge. Platelets, let's have you come up to normal. Nobody tells us we can command the body. The body can be commanded. Let's go on and do it. But it has to be very gentle. See, it can't be, I'm going to get up tomorrow. I'm going home tomorrow. By God, this hospital won't keep me here. That's the sure way to stay in it, by the way. Another sure way is by not taking charge and in a gentle way saying what you want to the cells of your body. So he very, very honestly said to me, man, I see I was in fantasy. Fantasy is its own reward, you see. But it doesn't help him now. Reality helps him now. Saying, okay, I accept what is. Here's what I have to do for myself. What you have to do for yourself is in the what is, not in the fantasy. Fantasy cannot live in the world. dynamically. It just can't. It can't. Fantasy is fantasy. You have it so you don't have to live in the world. Accepting what is one of the holiest places you could possibly be. It is a sacred ground where you accept reality. It's very important, if you were a fantasist, and most children are, i.e. most children's minds are, i.e. most egoic child's minds within the adult have a level of fantasy. Here, this man was a 70-year-old man. He has it. So don't think you are escaping it. It's very important to confront fantasy and get rid of it as early as you can, because it will not serve you at any point. I think fantasy is really important. If you're a writer, put it on the page. If you're a screenwriter, put it on the screen. If you're an actor, put it on the stage. But you don't want that in your life. In your life, we want reality. We want the acceptance of what is as the starting place for us. To get well, to make money, to enjoy our lives, to have a happy relationship. Nothing has gone before this moment of decision. This moment, right now. You have not had that mean mother, or that violent father, or that sister that was horrible to you. Those things are wiped away in consciousness, in grace. They are part of your wisdom. And your wisdom translates to your contribution to the world. But they are not you anymore, in that you don't have to tell that story again. Why? What's the point of telling it and being a victim over and over and over and over again? What's the point? What do you have to give right now? I'd say quite a lot. The interesting thing about life is that every one of you, with no exception, are love itself. You are love itself. It's distorted. It's been buried deeply within you sometimes, so nobody will hurt you again. But the happy life that you seek is in the unearthing of that. You must find out that life is about your giving love, not receiving it, because it is in the giving that you will receive. But you have to give it to the right people. I want to say, I always go back to that marvelous thing, do not cast your pearls before swine. Remember that? I want to say that doesn't mean that the pig is bad. It means that they can't appreciate fine jewelry. By being more trustworthy, by finding out that God is trustworthy, by living a different life, you find out that you are attracting trustworthy people. And these are people that you give your love to. If you don't have those people in your life, you have to do work on you. And then you have to see what will happen, because all of us are capable of great love. There are some that want it and there are some that don't. You want it. That's why you're listening. So let's get you real clear. Let's catch anything that adulterates love, like manipulation. At one time, my friend would have taken that flower to her because she wanted to people please, or she wanted her to stop jumping on her as she went by. That would not have worked. She would have felt that energy. You have to be loving to attract love and a loving life. Can't fake it. Okay. So you have a small surrender, lots of small surrenders. They all lead up to the big one if you go that far and if you determine that that will be your life. I hope you will. It's wonderful. It's a relief. In that divine purpose, in that you will be giving the love and the wisdom that you are here to bestow on others. And there's no finer and more fulfilling life than that, I think. I wish this for you. Let's say our prayer. Dear God, who is all there is. That's so, thank you so much. Oh, well, thank you. I guess I'm kind of clashing with the walls, Randy. As a matter of fact, my dear friend just wrote and said the colors are fantastic. Here I am with orange against kind of a red, but I hope it works. All right. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are and all everything is in this world, we thank you so much. We are here to clear, release, and cancel anything that we can, anything that we'll let go of. We want the relief of you. We ask to be more loving and to open the door to deeper levels of our own truths so that we can see them, our awareness of how we stop ourselves, that we may have more. We now align the conscious and subconscious minds in complete agreement and alignment. We ask for 100% integration and communication in all chakras in between them, in all bodies in between them, and all organs, glands, and systems in between them. We seal all miasms. We clear everything as we call it by name, that it is part of our independent system, our life pattern system, and our defense system. We ask that all of these issues, whether they are independent or part of a system now, be clear that they came up today in this lecture for us, that we may have a clarity of being, a deeper sense of self, and of commitment to this, that this world does not take us from ourselves, that we don't let it, that we stay within the integrity of self where you reside in us, that we're able to hold on to it. We thank you so much, dear God, as we give out of this to our fellow man, adding value where we can, and being content. These things are so fully, completely, permanently, and immediately. And so it is. Amen. Thank you, sweeties. Now, what I would ask you all for, please, if you've enjoyed this show or any others, will you please follow us and send this around to friends of yours. I know we didn't have the Blog Talk Radio today, but certainly you can do this on Facebook Live, sending this to your accounts, your social media people. We should appreciate that very much because we do this every Sunday. We love doing this for you, but we do want to get the word around, and you can help us do that. So thank you so much for saying you will. And guys, we'll be here next week at 10 o'clock in the morning on Sunday for you with another lesson, and certainly we want to hear from you. You take care of yourself, and God bless you. Have a great week. Remember, God loves you through you, so you be gentle and kind to yourself. You'll hear from me otherwise. Take care. Bye-bye.